Welcome back, guys. As always, Hot Mess Espresso is very proudly sponsored by 502 Media. Abigail Gagnon is a podcast host, wife, community builder, and a chronic illness Spoonie who is doing her best to raise awareness for mind, body, and soul health, and to remind people that we can all leave a legacy, even if it's not material things. What is up, Abigail?
Hi, I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad to finally have you on. This has been a little bit of a, scheduling thing, but we've made it work. Um, so chronic illness. How comfortable are you talking about that, and how has that journey gone for you?
I am very comfortable talking about that. So, I have been in constant pain since I was a teenager. I have multiple different issues, really flat feet, and have to wear lifts in my shoes. And I've got knee issues. Sometimes my kneecaps come out of place, so that's fun because then it hurts like I'll get out when they go back in place. Hip issues, spine issues. And I broke my tailbone when I was 14, 15 years old, and it broke at a 90-degree angle.
Whew.
And yeah, and never quite healed properly. So if I sit too long, especially on hard surfaces, like it hurts still really bad, and I've re-injured it multiple times, so that hasn't helped. And with all of that, I've also struggled with migraines, which is one of the big things for me because a lot of mine I get are silent. And so at times I'll be just dizzy and really nauseous and like all the symptoms that you get with a migraine, but no head pain, which may be like, oh, well, that's great. You have no head pain, but it still can be really debilitating. And for the longest
Yeah.
time, it took forever to get diagnosed with that because they kept being like, oh, it's vertigo. You've got an inner ear issue. You've got this, you've got that. And it was all migraine related. And so it took me 3 years of going to multiple different doctors, PT appointments, different neurologists, all the things to finally get diagnosed. And that was really tough
Yeah.
because a lot of people didn't fully believe me. And different doctors and different people in my life were just thought that, oh, you look fine, you can't be that sick. And it's like, no, something is clearly wrong with me. And yeah, it was really tough.
Yeah, as of current chronic illness, Spoonie, disabled girl myself, like, whew, speaking my language. But also with the silent migraines, like, yeah, you don't get the head pain, but I'm gonna tell you right now, that nausea takes you out. It is the
Yeah.
worst.
Yeah. And so is the dizziness and the shakiness. And I don't know if you deal with like aphasia at all,
Oh, yeah.
but I do. And it's terrible. When it first started happening to me, I was like, why does it sound like people are speaking in gibberish? And I had no idea that it was a thing. Sometimes I'll be speaking and I'll just not make sense. Like my husband will be like, I don't think that's what you meant to say because that made zero sense whatsoever. And then I'll repeat it and he'll repeat it back to me. I'm like, those were not the words I said. He's like, yes, those she said. And it's so frustrating. It's only happened a couple of times where I haven't been able to speak at all, but it's terrible when like normal body functions, like you have no control over it.
1,000%. When did you actually start getting all of your diagnoses?
So multiple things happened from the time that I was 14 until I was 25. So I got diagnosed with a thyroid
Mhm.
condition and then different spine issues and stuff between like 14 and 19. But I was still able to work and
Mhm.
everything. I just had to wear a back brace and tape my knees and wear lifts in my shoes, and I pushed through it. But then back in 2016, I started getting what I thought at the time was a bunch of stomach bugs all of a sudden, and turns out they were silent migraines. And so from 2016 to 2019, it took me to get diagnosed. And then I finally found a neurologist, and she put all the pieces together and was like, yeah, that's what you've been experiencing. We tried different daily meds. And then eventually I was able to get off the daily med, and now I take a shot called a Jovi, so you can take it monthly, but I do it every 3 months. And so I get 3 injections at a time. And then they put me down for a little bit at first, but it definitely has really, really helped. And then I was able to get off my daily meds. And I think it's really helped with the as needed meds. I feel like they work a lot better since I've been taking the Ajovi.
Oh, for sure. I mean, this is gonna be kind of a stupid question because again, I kind of get it, but how frustrating was all this, especially as a teenager and not like from 14 to 19, like a fresh teenager. how did that affect you mentally, socially, all of that, just dealing with one thing after another and not having answers and finally having answers and then things being added on, and what was that like?
It was really hard, honestly, especially growing up with brothers, and we would do a lot of stuff outside. And there was a period of time for like almost 7 months where after I re-injured my tailbone, I was basically in bed or laying on the couch. Like I could not do hardly anything physical because I was in so much pain. And that was really, really hard because growing up with brothers, being active, we grew up on a lot of land. And so not being able to do that. And then when I was working, even though I was able to work, I think people knew like that I wore a back brace. They knew I taped my knees, but I feel like sometimes they'd be like, "Oh, you can do this on your break and we can go, running or biking or whatever." But I couldn't do that because I knew that if I made my pain worse, I then couldn't work and I needed to save my spoons and whatever for working and, ice my knees, ice my back, do all the things. And that was really hard because even though some people got it, I think some people were just like, "Oh, you're exaggerating." And there were some times where literally it was really hard not to do anything but just talk about it. Every time I'd bend over, it would hurt really bad or whatever. And people would be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
you're just doing it for attention." And it's like, no, I'm literally in pain 24/7. I do not talk about it unless that's the only thing I can think about. I'm sorry, my face, my grimace face, when I'm trying to stand up bothers you, but you know, so that was
Yep.
really hard. And then when I started to get sicker, in 2016, some of the people that had been in my life work-wise were like, "Oh, I bet, since you work at a pub, you're just out there drinking and, you're hungover and that's why you're not coming in." And I'm like, "No, that's not the case. You know me. I do not, if I were hungover, I would still come in, but I'm responsible and I would
Right.
not do that." And, obviously working in food service too, like I genuinely thought that I was getting stomach bugs all the time, which to me made no sense, but whatever. And you can't work in food service when you're throwing up. If I had known it was migraines and it wasn't
Nope.
contagious, then sure, maybe would I have tried to push through it sometimes, but I didn't know. So like it wasn't
Right.
my fault. And it just was really hard to have people that were close to me and knew me act like I was faking it or seeming to question my character when, it was really emotionally hard for me to come to grips with I might not be able to do what I love and I can't do all these things. I don't know what's wrong with me. Nobody can help me. And it was really hard. And I started to slip back into a depression around that time because I just was like, my purpose is gone. Like, I can't do anything and people don't believe me. And I felt useless. And like, what was my purpose? And it was really hard. In 2013, I wanted to take my life. And so, luckily, like, I had gotten through that. But I still then started to feel kind of slipping back into that. And so I ended up getting into therapy when I started to notice that. And so I signed up for BetterHelp and did that for a few months to really help with that.
Has BetterHelp been around for that long? I've only heard about it in the last, like, basically post-COVID.
Yeah, so it was 2017, I think, was when I did it. Because I started to get sicker in 2016, but I'm pretty sure I didn't sign up for BetterHelp until I had left the job. So that would have been early 2017, I think.
Okay. Huh. Well, I mean, it's not like it just popped up out of nowhere, so that makes complete and total sense. To kind of circle back to what you were saying and to part of your intro, spoonies. Can you explain the spoon theory? Because I know it and pretty much everyone in our community understands it. But for those that are like, what the hell is the spoon theory? Because I know you've said it. I don't have the spoons for this. Like, what is it?
So, somebody, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she wrote a blog many years ago. I don't know what year she wrote it. And basically was trying to explain what it's like for those with really bad mental health or physical health challenges. And so essentially, if those that are listening think about if they are seemingly a healthy person, you may wake up with 5 spoons. I also may wake up with 5 spoons, but it may take you 1 spoon to get out of bed, brush your teeth, get ready for the day, and eat breakfast. Where on days, especially when I have a flare, it may take 1 or 2 spoons just to get out of bed and brush my teeth. So it's kind of a way to think of your energy. And so some people also have used, like, I've got keys or they've used different things for describing the energy or point or whatever, but it's basically a way to, like I said, explain how those of us that are chronically ill, it takes a lot more energy to do normal things. And even if we seem fine, and also for those that have dynamic disabilities, it's really tough because for me, I can some days do more than others. And so, you may see a picture of me on social media having a blast, doing having fireworks, a drink in my hand, whatever. But you don't see behind the scenes that I had to eat more before I had that drink than maybe somebody else. I had to make sure I had a lot of electrolytes earlier in the day to make sure I was okay. Fireworks, wearing loop earplugs, and potentially some days I have to, go inside if there are fireworks outside because it bothers my head, etc. So there's a lot of things that we have to think about that go into us being able to enjoy ourselves, which can be very frustrating. And just because we can do it one day or do it something in the morning doesn't mean we can then do something later on, which is why I don't work outside the home anymore because it wouldn't be fair to an employer to hire me and then, every few months around my shots be like, so for basically a month I can't work. And also in between there are days where I can't work. So yeah.
Yeah, it becomes very frustrating, and that's the thing, like, I've heard it from people. Thankfully, I have surrounded myself with a group of people that understand that, like, if I'm out, I'm out. But that's the thing. People are like, "Oh my God, you're you're posting on social media." And this is like way back in the day, but like, "Oh, you were fine last night when you went out." Yeah, that was my one thing that I could do this week before I got taken out for the rest of the week. Case in point, I went to Kentucky for my brother's graduation, um, at the time of this recording last week. The day after I got back, I could barely form sentences because I was just my body was done. And I don't know if like your body kind of like your body gives a sign where like it's done, where like there's a certain part of your body where it all like settles and you're just like, ooh, if I don't like chill out, it's gonna make me chill out. Mine is somehow like between my shoulder blades. If it feels really heavy there, I'm screwed. But I literally, and someone was over at the house and they were like, I'm like, words like not happening more than usual. And it's so hard to explain to people that, oh, I was gone for 3 days and yeah, I didn't sleep a lot. And, I was in the car for 12 hours at a time and we had all this stuff. But like those 3 days took me out.
hmm Yeah, it's really hard to explain. Or even with my husband, like we've been together for a little over 7 years at this point.
Mhm.
I think it'll be like 7.5 years by the time this episode comes out. But either way, um, and even though he lives with me, I'm pretty good at, faking it. Which with him, I try not to fake it because I want to be authentic. And especially with him, like
Mhm.
he's my safe place. I live with him, but I still don't want every single time he comes home be complaining about my aches and pains. Like he knows I'm in pain. So I think sometimes even with that, I think sometimes he'll like, forget, not really forget, but not realize like, oh yeah, you did a bunch of stuff, or oh, your shots are coming up, or oh, you're about to start your period. So like sometimes I feel like doesn't think about it as much. And then when I'll remind him, he'll be like, oh, that's right. You can't do all of those things in a row. And he's very good about it. He's very, empathetic. Like he never makes me feel bad about it. But still, like he doesn't have to have it at the forefront of his mind all the time. And so it can be very frustrating when he's like suggests something and I'm like, yeah, no, because we have something 2 days after that, or I have something big a day before. Like, yeah, it's really hard to have to plan around your body when, especially me, I'm like very spontaneous by nature. And I hate that my body and my soul don't match up and I can't do the things that my soul would want to do.
I swear to God, planning for like life when it comes to having like chronic illness and disability is actually worse than planning around hair wash day.
hmm
And like that's the other thing too. Like, oh my God, if I have to wash my hair, that's another spoon because I can't just wash it and let it air dry. I got to blow dry it. I got to, it's like takes an extra like half hour out of my day. And I'm just like, I don't want to do this. Like, it's so hard to explain to people where it's like, yeah, this is gonna like probably take me out for the rest of the night. So here we are.
Yeah. No, I feel that. Or even sometimes making dinner. I love to cook. And there are times where I use my spoons to cook because I'm like, I love to cook and also we need food. But then there are other times where my husband comes home and he'd be like, have you eaten today? You look miserable. And I'm like, nope, I had no spoons. So
Yeah.
he'll then end up
I,
having to cook.
yeah, I like we push ourselves because we have to.
Hmm.
But there comes a time where even just like, yeah, going to the fridge and grabbing a yogurt, bit too much.
Yeah, especially
And
flu and cold season, that's even worse. Like if I get sick,
yeah.
I I can't. I have
Yeah.
no spoons. I've got negative 100 spoons. It's terrible.
Hmm. Like I am owed spoons at that point. Like
Yeah.
then that's why like I was genuinely terrified of getting COVID because and thankfully when I got it, it was super minimal. Like I had a headache and I was like, "Oh, that's what a normal headache's supposed to feel like. This isn't bad." Um but getting a cold puts me on my ass 4 days. Like it
Hmm.
even affects the way I walk. Like I'm Bambi on ice more than usual. And it is so I get a cold, people are like, "Oh, it's not that bad." It is for us when our body's constantly fighting itself 24/7. It's like another thing on, and it's just like clocking out. Done.
Yeah. Yeah. Last year I got sick, or beginning of this year, I got sick for like 2 weeks straight and had like 10-day migraine and then lost my voice. And it was more miserable than I've been in a very long time. Like I basically lived in bed or on the couch, and it
Yeah.
was really only because I wanted to change the scenery, and it took all my energy to make it from the bed to the couch.
It really does. Like and do you deal with like when you're going to the doctors or you wind up in the ER with like a pain episode or something like that? And people are like, "Oh, what's your pain on a scale of 1 to 10?" And you're like an 8 and they're looking at you like you said that a little too like normally and it's like cuz I'm dealing with this 24/7 if I acted like I was in level 8 pain at all times, which by the way, if you deal with chronic pain, your level 8 is probably someone else's like level 11 to 12. I'm just going to say that. You get used to it. But do you deal with doctors being like, mhm, cuz if I act like I'm actually in level 8 pain all the time, they'd commit me.
No, I've dealt with that so many times, especially when I was starting to get worse and I'd go to the ER because I'm like, well, my regular doctors can't help me. I need help. And they were like, oh, well, if you were in as much pain as you're saying, you'd be crying, you'd be curled up in a ball or whatever. Or if I would try to compare it and be like, oh, well, this pain is so bad, like I was doubled over in pain earlier. This pain that I'm now experiencing is worse. And they're like, well, let's focus on the other pain that you came in for. I'm like, I'm just trying to explain to you like my pain scale is not normal. And yeah, it definitely is really tough. Or there was one time I went in because I had fainted and a coworker had caught me and kind of put me in a chair and he was like, "Oh, well, since you didn't fall on the ground, there's nothing I can do for you." And I was like, but I would have. I would have. And he's like, well, you drove yourself here. And I was like, yeah, because the hospital was 5 minutes away from work and I didn't want to pay for an ambulance because I can't afford it. So I keep having to call out of work because I'm clearly something is wrong with me. And yeah, yeah. And he's
Yeah,
like, oh, see a
it's
specialist. And I was like, I know, I have a specialist appointment coming up, but clearly something is wrong.
I love when they tell you to see a specialist and you're like, "I know, my specialist told me to come here."
Hmm.
So, you fix it. I literally remember being in so much pain one time that and this doctor had basically all but refused to do what we needed to do, and when my mom finally had enough and was like, "Look, I'm not trying to be rude, but, like, are you kidding me?" She got put down as irate in the hospital notes, and I'm just thinking, like, if we had a dollar for every time we were uncooperative or irate in the notes because we were just standing up for ourselves and, like my mom's with me. Do you honestly think she's gonna, like, be okay with me sitting here, like, seeking Dilaudid? Like, no, I'm seeking Dilaudid because my entire body feels like I just stepped into a vat of lava.
Yeah. No, you
Can you
gotta
just
love the
take the edge
hospital
off?
notes or the doctor notes. I had seen a neurologist and he was asking like about my sleep. And I said, yeah, I try to be, very routine with my sleep because I know I don't feel good if I don't sleep. And he's like, well, do you ever struggle with like insomnia and stuff? And I said, well, only really around my period, but that's it. And so
Mhm.
then he kept going on about different things that I should try, and I was like, it's fine. Like I have methods that work, but sometimes I just know like there's gonna be one night sometimes around my period that I can't sleep. So in his notes, he was like, suggested that the patient do this and this for their sleep so that, she can feel better or something stupid like that. And I was like, I said that I sleep fine. It literally was just occasionally I answered honestly, like, I hate that you have to like almost not answer honestly in those cases because you
Yeah.
know that they're going to blow it out of proportion.
Oh my god. So some of these doctors, and thankfully I now have a team that's amazing, but some of these doctors' egos need to be checked.
Hmm.
Like, absolutely. We found what I had based off of a resident that basically kind of went over the head of the attending we were dealing with and was like, "Do you think it's Chiari malformation?" And then that kind of started us on a journey of, it wasn't Chiari malformation, but it started us on a journey of starting to figure out the more like rare condition, which turned out to be syringomyelia. But it's like, I honestly would rather listen to a resident than an attending half the time, because a resident is still like, "Hey, there's lots to learn. Like, what about this? What about this?" And they don't get all like butthurt if you're like, "Hey, I've already tried that. It doesn't work." Or, "Hey, this work." It's like doctors forget to listen 9 times out of 10 these days. I swear to God.
Hmm. Hmm. Or like when they ask about like, are you depressed or do you have anxiety? It's like enough for like an average person that also is in constant pain all the time. And then they'll make a note and be like suggested herbs or whatever for some with their anxiety. It's like I am in constant pain. I'm as much, anxiety as that causes, but
Right.
nothing extreme. I'm fine. Like, I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't
we're
know.
not
Yeah.
yeah, we're not gonna touch your pain, but hey, here's an antidepressant because you claimed you're depressed. Like, that's not gonna help me, Mark.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So what got you to start the podcast? Obviously, we kind of talked about in the intro, like what your goal was, but what made you go, "I should start a podcast"?
So I had been told by several people that I give really good advice and I have a good podcast voice and I should start a podcast. And I was like, I thought about doing like a vlog or maybe restarting my blog up again. And then I was like, you know what? I love to talk and I also don't always feel well enough to want to be in front of a camera. So maybe a podcast would be a good idea. So I just kind of decided, hey, I'm going to do it. I told my husband, and he was like, well, what are you going to talk about? I'm like, not exactly sure fully, but I'm going to start a podcast. And he's like, well, shouldn't you have all of this planned out? And I'm like, well, if I think about it too much, I'm never going to do it. So
Right.
I figured, shortly after that, I created like an account on a host platform and recorded a couple episodes and put it out on the same day. And I wasn't quite sure the ratio of like solo episodes to guest episodes to start with. It's kind of evolved over the last couple of years. Now it's mostly guest episodes with some solo episodes sprinkled in there. But I really just wanted to be able to share kind of my story and different things that I've been through and, kind of bring more awareness to the Spoonie chronic illness community and remind people that they're not alone. And then also with the legacy piece, just especially somebody that loves to be able to be there for people, help people, do all the things, and not be able to always do that physically. I really think it's important to remember that those of us that can't always leave our beds or the couch, we still can make a difference by reaching out to people, by, being a listening ear, by making a post that inspires someone or encourages someone, etc. And so I think that that is really important. I think legacy is often thought of materialistically in today's day and age or with children. And, if you don't have children, can't have children, whatever, that's something, another factor too, that I think that we shouldn't put necessarily our legacies just could be our children or just material items. I think how we treat people can be a legacy. And so I also have always been the type that loves to connect people with other people and learn from people and hear their stories. So that's kind of evolved into a lot of what I do with all the guests. Because even if I can relate in some ways to different people, I can't relate in others. And so it's been really, really fun to be able to learn from people and hear their stories. And also, then if somebody I know mentions, hey, I'm really struggling with this, even if I can't fully relate, I can be like, hey, here's a podcast episode, or this is a podcast guest I had, and I think that you guys should connect. And so it's
Yep.
not necessarily because I want them to, listen to my podcast. I mean, great that they do, but it's a way for me to be able to help them feel less alone, maybe give them some advice, even if it's not coming from me and it's coming from a guest that I had a conversation with.
Right. I swear to God, the blog to podcast pipeline is way more common than we think. Because I also had a blog that turned into a podcast years later. It took my best friend like 3 years to convince me to do all of this. But what were some of your most impactful guests? Like who have you had on in the last couple of years that really you got off the recording and you were like, whew, like it changed you in some way?
I think that I feel like almost every single guest I have on, I'm like, oh, this is my new favorite episode. But I
Right.
think that one of them that I had on recently was a dream episode. And I had a friend of mine and then I had a dream expert. And I've had the dream expert on before. And then my friend and I, this in this episode or two-part episode, shared some of our dreams and then she kind of interpreted them and we talked about them. And we really dove into a lot of like inner work and healing and just the connection. And I don't know, it was just really, really powerful. And I was like, who would have thought that some of the stuff that has come up in this episode would be brought on by dreams. And I just think I just love when conversations happen like that, where it starts in one direction or kind of one theme and it goes into something else. I also have had multiple chronic illness people on the podcast, and one turned into a double episode. And I had had some notes, and we talked about the grief of the Spoonie life and grieving our old lives, grieving the things that we can't do or want to do, whatever. And I barely touched my notes. Like it was such just a conversation that just free flowed. It was so much fun. I've had different people from different organizations on as well. Someone that works with Love Justice, which is a human trafficking organization that they help, save girls and boys in other countries mostly and raise awareness for it. And so that was really inspiring just to hear all the stories that she shared. And then I've just had lots of different people that have taken their pain and turned it into something beautiful. Like one of my, I think it was end of last season or it might have been beginning of the season I'm currently on. Her daughter had died and she ended up turning some of her daughter's passions and creating a foundation and kind of, having her daughter live on through this legacy and that she had created. And I just thought that was really powerful. And like different people like that, that just really take their pain and they turn it into a purpose. There's another one that I had on who created an adaptable clothing line because she's in a wheelchair. And then she ended up, having different, being a part of different fashion shows and different things like that because of that. And it's like something that she was trying to use to help herself. She then turned into helping so many other people, which I think is just really awesome.
I love that. And like you said, like almost all of your guests wind up being your new favorite, especially when you just really, really vibe with somebody or they have such an impactful story or a cause or things along that nature. And something that you just said with a past guest about the grief of grieving your life the way it was. Do you find that you actually kind of black it out what you like what your life was before everything happened and or do you constantly kind of remember?
I feel like it depends. I at the beginning, I kind of was blocking it out. I didn't realize it was grief. I don't think.
Mhm.
Because I think that at that point, I was just thinking grief is grieving a death. And at the same time,
Mhm.
I was also grieving the place that I had worked at and lived at for many years that had really saved my life, had been there when I was you wanting to take my life. Not a lot of people knew about it, but still, like they were there for me. And that place
Right.
was a big turning point in my life. And so
Mhm.
I didn't realize at the time like that I was grieving that place, grieving the people there, and then also
Mhm.
grieving more of a physically healthy person, even though I wasn't healthy, but I was still able to do more than I can do now a lot of the time.
Right.
And so I think that there are times where I don't think about it as much, but I also think that that comes with finding new purposes and finding new
Mhm.
things that bring me joy, and then I can focus on that and what, I was working full time, I would not be able to do the podcast probably, or if I did, it would look different. And then, I run communities online and do book studies and all this stuff that I do that I probably would not be able to do in the same capacity that I do now. And they might
Right.
not even have existed because I might have been like, oh, I'm too busy and kept pushing it off and having excuses because of that. So I try to focus a lot on that, but there are times, especially if I'm really struggling physically, and maybe I haven't been able to get out of the house as much or haven't been able to see people besides my husband as much in person. Sometimes those I think are really hard because
Yeah.
it's like I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to get out. I want to be able to do these things, or my husband will go over to our friend's house and he'll ask me if I want to go, and I'll be like, no, because I don't want you to have to feel like you have to leave early because I know how I feel right now. I'm not going to be able to stay late. And it's hard. It's hard sometimes to not be able to do
Yeah.
the things that I want to do. But I think at this point, I've grieved it in a lot of ways and worked through those emotions that I think now, for the most part, I can see the beauty and the purpose that I have now versus constantly looking back. Or if I look back on it, it's like with fondness, not like I wish that I could do all those things. Even though I do, it's not as much with sadness. I think it's just more like reminiscent and nostalgic kind of.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I've pretty much come to terms with being disabled, and I've technically been disabled for 14 years. And I started when I was 19. So it's been almost half my entire life. Um, do I get my moments where I'm having a pity party and a half because, it's just frustrating that I can't do certain things, or like I feel, I don't want to say left out, but like I know that people are doing things that I can't do. So like I would get the invite if it wasn't like already very much established that like I'm not going to be able to do that. So it does get frustrating sometimes, and you feel like you're missing out on certain things, but at the same time, like you were saying, there's so much that we're able to do in spite of what we're dealing with. Like, I wouldn't have this podcast. I wouldn't, have the impact that I do because I'd be too busy working and,
Hmm.
not having enough time for anything. I would not have gotten the, amazing first like year with my nephew if I had been able to work, and I wouldn't have been able to watch him for my sister and my brother-in-law. Like that was huge. That was a big thing that I wouldn't have been able to do had I been working. So it's like there's good and bad things, but it's just, I guess it's just kind of like a balance. But when you're kind of going through the more just really feeling the impact, what are you doing to kind of pull yourself out of it?
I will answer that question, but first I do want to acknowledge the feeling left out piece because that
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest part for me is when people are doing things, or because we live not in the middle of nowhere, but we kind of live a little off like the beaten path. We live on a lake and we live
Mhm.
kind of in the country in a small town. And so there are times where people will be like, oh, let's get together. And I'm like, oh, I can't always drive. My husband works a lot. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get a ride there. Like, you could come to me. I could make dinner. And if someone's coming from a far distance and like I have some single friends, I'll be like, hey, you can crash. We have extra beds, like whatever. And I know that that's inconvenient to some degree, but I feel like there are people that never take me up on it, or never am like, oh, it's fine, like whatever. Or I don't know. I just feel like that can be really hard. Or when people make plans and like, oh, we assumed you wouldn't feel good. It's like I
Yeah.
personally would rather be invited and have to say, no, I don't feel good, even though, yes, that is hard. I would rather make that decision versus you making it for me. Because
Yeah.
if I can't get a ride there, I don't feel up to driving, I don't feel good, whatever, like let me decide that, because you could catch me on a really good day and I could have felt well enough to be able to go and do whatever, or I would feel well enough to have people over. And so I think that is one of the harder pieces. But things that
Yeah.
I do to kind of help and cope, I'm a Christian, and so reading the Bible is one thing that helps me. I also listen to music a lot. I have several playlists. I'm a big playlist girl, and so I have one playlist of songs that basically just have encouraged me from like when I was a teenager up until now. So some of them are Christian songs, some of them are pop songs, whatever. It's, a big variety of just songs that I've listened to when I've been really struggling. So I often will listen to that playlist. I've got comfort shows, so I'll watch those. The Fosters and Friends are two of my biggest ones that I will rewatch a lot. Also journaling if I feel up to reading. If it's a mental and not physical, I love to read. So I'll do that a lot, especially in the summer. Like I said, we live on water, so I try and spend a lot of time down by the water if I'm not too dizzy. because there's a lot of steps going down there. So if I'm too
Yeah,
dizzy, I can't. So I'll hang up at the top of the
right.
steps and pretend I'm down there. Um, but yeah, those are some of the things that I do, and cooking as well. I think is really I love, cooking, listening to music, and things like that. And I also like use Marco Polo or FaceTime or whatever to communicate, with people when, like I said, when it's more of a mental piece versus a physical piece.
Who are some of your go-to musicians? Like what are some of your playlists? Who's featured?
It depends on the playlist.
Mhm.
But some of my go-tos the last couple of years, my Spotify Wrapped has been mainly Taylor Swift, Morgan Wallen, uh, Blanca has been in there, Tyler Hubbard. I listen to a lot of like country music. And also Daughtry is one of my favorite bands.
He's
Skillet,
solid.
yeah, I love Daughtry. I've seen him a few times in concert. So good. Skillet, and I'm trying to think of other ones that I generally are my go-to. Adam Lambert is a big one of my favorites as well.
Ugh,
Um, what?
I said
What did
love
you
him.
say? Oh, okay. I thought you had said that you didn't know who he was. And I was like,
Oh my
come on
God,
now.
no.
I have one of his albums on my little shelf in front of me, and it's signed because I pre-ordered it. And I've seen him
Oh,
several times in concert. He's so good in concert.
ugh,
But yeah,
phenomenal.
yeah, so good. But yeah, those are some of my top ones. I've also recently been listening to, Kelsey Ballerini is another one,
Ugh,
and love
Ash.
her. Yes, I love her so much. And then Abby Carter, she won American Idol 2 seasons ago. I've been listening to
Okay.
her album a lot this summer. I can't remember. I think it came out in the fall.
Mhm.
And then I listen to other variety of albums too. When I read, I tend to listen to albums versus a playlist. I mean, it's in a
Mhm.
playlist, but I listen to it not shuffled because I feel like it's very distracting when one song is like really calm and mellow and the next song is like I want to get up and dance. So,
Right.
yeah.
So with Kelsey Ballerina, are you more pre-divorce or post-divorce for her music?
So I've been listening to her from basically day one. I saw her in
Mhm.
concert back when I think it was just the first album. Yeah, I think because Dibs was on the album on the tour that she opened up for Lady Antebellum or Lady A, and Hunter Hayes was also on tour. So I saw her then.
Oh, so that
But
was a
the album,
hot minute ago.
yeah, yeah. But the album that I've been listening to mainly are her two newest ones. Patterns
They're
is the one that I
so
listen
good.
to the most. The first one, well, I can't think of what it's called. The one that's blue and yellow. She's in a yellow dress and it's blue in the background.
Uh,
It
that
came
that
out
one was
before Patterns.
before rolling up the welcome mat.
Yes. Why can't I think of what it's called?
Um, I
When
can't
that
think of
came
it
out, I
either.
listened to that album like on repeat all the time. And then when
Mhm.
Rolling Up the Welcome Mat and Patterns came out, I've been like listening to those more. Not that I don't like the other album, but those two are my go-tos for her.
Yeah. I like had known of her, but she released Rolling Up the Welcome Mat, the non-extended version, the year before I got a divorce, and it like kind of helped me grieve the inevitable like end of my marriage and then the actual divorce, and then Patterns came out and it was a lot of like, hope and stuff like that, and I was like, okay, you can like, find love after divorce and stuff like that. So that was like a big one. I'm pretty sure when my Spotify Wrapped comes out this year, We Broke Up is probably going to be like 3 months straight because
Oh
that
my
song's a
gosh, I
total
love
banger.
love that song. Love that song.
Ugh, so good.
Yeah.
Like it's fine. The rest of the album's fire, but like there was just because I was going through a breakup, like um and it was actually kind of funny because the first trip or the last trip I had taken with the person that, our relationship has since ended. I was like singing that in the car, just like, cause I was like, oh yeah, this song's like so good, blah, blah, blah. And then it wound up being like the song I listened to like over and over to get over that breakup. It's totally fine. But yeah, Daughtry's also a phenomenal. I mean, I have listened to Daughtry since he wrongly lost American Idol.
I know, right? Did you watch The Masked Singer when he was on it?
No, I've never really watched The Masked Singer. I don't know why, it just never really clicked with me.
Oh, see, I love my brother and I that are closest in age to. He
Mhm.
and I often will like play music from our playlist and then ask the other person, like, do you know who this is? Do you know who the song is? And it's just fun. And he does it, I think, more than I
Right.
do. But anyway, and so I kind of makes me think of that when I watch that show because, and it's very interesting because when Daughtry was on it, the second he opened his mouth, I'm like, that is Chris Daughtry. And my husband was like, there is
Yeah.
no way you know that so fast. I'm like, you have no idea how many times I've listened to his music. And also, Leave This Town is like one of my favorite albums of all time. I'm like, I
That's
would know
so
this
good.
voice anywhere. And then, like, when it was the clues, I was like, there's no way. There's no way this is not him. And when he got unmasked, my husband was like, all right, you were right. I was like, I told you from the second he started singing, I knew it was him.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no. So, what is next for the BeYOUtiful podcast? What is next for your online communities? Like, where's all this headed?
So I would like to know the answer to that question because I want to know the future. But what
Where
I
are
would
we
like
intending
to
it to head?
yes, I know what you meant. I know what you meant. Anyways, I would like to eventually get a sponsor for the podcast. I would love to get paid to talk to people and, contribute somewhat financially or have spending money for myself.
Mhm.
And so that I think is a big thing. Also, to have more guests tell their story. I've got a huge wait list for people coming on, which is really awesome but also a little bit overwhelming. So I'm like, I feel bad that you have to wait so long, but I also need to pace myself and,
Right.
be kind to my body and, all those things. So I would love to just continue to have the podcast, continue to touch more people, continue to have people on. I would love to maybe eventually have somebody on that I've looked up to for a long time or different artists or whatever that it's like, I don't know, I'd have to get pretty big for that. But I think it would be so cool to be able to talk to some of the
You
people
don't, I
that
promise you, you don't. I already have had several like dream people on, and all I did was send an email.
I love that for you. I love that for you. I've sent a couple, and I haven't heard back from some. The organizations I've had on responded, and
Mhm.
that was really cool because those are organizations that I've like really like looked up to what they do. But yeah, I think it would be so cool to be able to just have conversations with people that I've looked up to for a while or meant something to me, or authors that have meant a lot to me or whatever. Because like I said, I love to read. Community wise, I just like to continue to see it grow. A big focus of ours, to remind people that they aren't alone, that they matter and so to have more people participate and be a part of those and yeah, I would just love to see both of the things grow and both of the things be able to touch more people and be able to have more conversations and grow myself because while I think that you can have, I don't want to say a toxic view on growth in the sense of I think sometimes we can be like too growth focused and like self-help focused and be like, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, and then like have this ideal
Yeah.
version of ourselves and not be okay with who we are right now. So I'm trying to find the balance of that, but I do love being able to have conversations with people and be able to learn from them and be able to hear from their story and be inspired.
Well, Abigail, thank you so much for coming on. You guys can catch her BeYoutiful podcast anywhere that you stream your podcasts. And then where can we find you on Instagram?
So it is to be YOUTIFUL_legacy is where you can find the podcast on Instagram. And it's also on Facebook and it's also on Threads. But on Facebook, you just look up Beautiful Legacy.
Perfect. Thank you so much for hopping on.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me.